We're live. All right. Shalom, Israel. Most High Christ bless. My name is Brother Zerubbabel,
My name is Ezra Elazar.
and we are children of Israel. We are here once again to bring another lesson to you. We're actually going to be continuing a lesson this Sabbath. We want to welcome you. Wish everyone a blessed Sabbath day, and we're going to basically jump right into this lesson. We're just continuing the lesson that we started last Sabbath, which was dealing with Jacob's trouble. Um, we showed a little bit last Sabbath of um, a Christian pastor. Well, he knows he's an Israelite, but showing that he's saying that Jacob's trouble is not trouble coming to Jacob, but the trouble Jacob is going to actually put onto their enemies. We're showing you through the scriptures that Jacob has always been in trouble. Jacob's trouble is not what a lot of people think is just one isolated two word phrase that you find in the book of Daniel. Jacob's trouble, it's only found put in that um, contextual element, I guess you could say, is in Daniel, in the book of Daniel, where it actually says Jacob's trouble. But Jacob's trouble has been around or has happened several times throughout the history of Jacob, which we are showing. We went through and showed the Jacob's troubles of the past already, which we're gonna finish up pretty much today, as far as Jacob's troubles with the Greeks and the Romans. We're gonna get into, and then we're gonna get into Jacob's future troubles to round it out and finish it up, because there are going to be future troubles for Jacob that are prophesied in the Bible, in the scriptures. Um, and like we said before, the reason why someone would come to the conclusion that Jacob's trouble is talking about the trouble that Jacob would be bringing on to their enemies is if you're missing information, which some people are not ascribing to the Apocrypha, which in turn they're not reading the book of Maccabees to understand that, yes, in the Apocrypha and various other books in the scriptures, it does warn us about troubles that are going to be coming upon Jacob um, in the future. All right. So last Sabbath we ended with talking about the abomination of desolation um, that came up upon the temple during the Greek captivity. We read about that in the book of First Maccabees chapter 1. Um, we're going to begin today um, in the book of Second Maccabees chapter 1, um, and then we'll jump to Second Maccabees 3, and then for the sake of time, we were going to read through them, but we're looking at, for the sake of time, we're just going to recommend that you read chapters 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're going to go through chapter 10, and that you also read chapters 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and essentially the entire book of Second Maccabees, in order to get a full understanding of what happened um, during the Maccabean period, which you read about in the Apocrypha, and what happened between Jacob and the Greeks, which you want to read the entire first book of Maccabees, and part of the first book, but mainly the second book, to find out about what happened with Jacob and the Romans, which in turn, when you get to the New Testament in the time of Christ, the Romans are in power. That didn't just happen at the time of the book of Mark, being introduced in the Gospels in the New Testament. Anybody with some common sense, when you read the New Testament and you say, okay, when you read the New Testament, it's showing us that the Romans were in power. So when did this happen? How did this happen? Where is the history of how the Romans came to have Jerusalem, under its power, or the Israelites and all the known world at that time pretty much under their power? How did they come into rulership? Where is that history? For whatever reason, because most Christians are actually, just about all Christian churches, number one, teach that the Old Testament is done away with. So if they don't even believe in the Old Testament, you most definitely know that they don't believe in the Apocrypha. So they will dismiss the Apocrypha. So you have to, in order to understand what's going on in the New Testament, especially the time of Christ and the apostles, and how Rome came into power and came into being, you have to read the book of Maccabees. You've got to. All right. So we're going to start in the book of Second Maccabees, chapter 1 and verse 1. And you're going to read through verse 8. So we're going to jump right into it.
Second Maccabees. The book of Second Maccabees, chapter 1 and verse 1. The brethren, the Jews that be at Jerusalem and in the land of Judah, which unto the brethren, the Jews that are throughout Egypt, health and peace. God be gracious unto you, and remember his covenant that he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, his faithful servant, and give you all an heart to serve him and to do his will with a good courage and a willing mind, and open your heart in his law and commandments, and send you peace, and hear your prayers, and be at one with you, and never forsake you in time of trouble. And now we be here praying for you, what time as Demetrius reigned in the 169th year, we, the Jews, wrote unto you in the extremity of trouble that came upon us in those years. From the time that Jason and his company revolted from the holy land of Kingsdom, and burned the porch and shed innocent blood. Then we prayed unto the Lord and were heard. We offer also sacrifices and fine flour and lighten the lamps and set forth the loaves.
All right. So you can see here that in this letter that was written to the Jews in Jerusalem, he says, God be gracious unto you. Remember his covenant that he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, his faithful servants. This also goes to show, too, that Paul wasn't the only one that wrote epistles. It was something that was commonly done by our brethren in times of old. That when they, wanted to communicate with the rest of the Jews or Jewry scattered throughout, the lands, they would write letters. So people thinking that Paul's writings are something um, unusual and dismissing Paul's writings as not being scriptural. You have people starting to teach this stuff now, that Paul's writings aren't scriptural, that they're not part of, they're not the law. They're, you know what I mean? That they're not actually commandments and things like that. Or they're not, some people even try and say they're not canonical, part of the canon, just like the Old Testament or the Apocrypha, they try and say is not part of the canon. But we're showing you right here that even during the time of Maccabees, our forefathers wrote epistles. They wrote letters, which one is what we're reading right now. He says, the the Jews that be at Jerusalem in the land of Judea. Wish unto the brethren, the Jews that are throughout Egypt, health and peace. God be gracious unto you. Remember his covenant that he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, his faithful servants, and give you all an heart to serve him and to do his will with a good courage and a willing mind, and open your hearts in his law and commandments and send you peace. So nothing no different than when you read an opening of one of Paul's epistles. Have an opening statement to who? To his brethren. There's nothing any different. And in verse 5, and hear your prayers and be at one with you and never forsake you in time of trouble. So you can see that this examples of Jacob being in trouble or having troubles has been mentioned throughout the scriptures. It's only in the book of Daniel where the phrase was used, Jacob's trouble. It wasn't something unique. It was something that came from the times of old, the times of present at that time when Daniel had his visions, and the times of the future or future times when Jacob would have troubles in the future. So the word trouble, or the concept of Jacob having trouble, has been there throughout the history of Israel, throughout the history of Jacob. It's not something new. So verse 6, it says, and now we be here praying for you. What time is Demetrius reigned in the 169th year? We the Jews wrote unto you in the extremity of trouble that came upon us in those years. So you can see they're saying they had extremity of trouble. And that's the same thing we're going to have in the future. We're going to have a trouble that is so extreme that we can't even fathom how bad it's going to be. Even though the scriptures describe what's going to happen in that time, we still cannot really vision in our minds. We can't even really imagine how extreme or how bad the troubles are going to come upon Jacob, or Jacob's trouble is going to be. He could have said the extreme troubles of Jacob in the future, Jacob's extreme troubles. He just said Jacob's trouble. It was mentioned that way again because Jacob has always had trouble. All right. So in verse 7 again, what time is Demetrius reigned in the 169th year? We the Jews wrote unto you in the extremity of trouble that came upon us in those years, from the time that Jason and his company revolted from the Holy Land and kingdom, and burned the porch and shed innocent blood. Then we prayed unto the Lord, and were heard. We offered also sacrifices and fine flour, and lighted the lamps, and set forth the loaves. So again, you got to go and read the scriptures in order to have full understanding of what the scriptures are talking about, especially with all these different topics. There are so many topics in the Bible that you can't just go based upon trying to read the Bible from cover to cover and think you're going to get the understanding of it. That's why you got to go precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little. Some people don't want to believe it, but you know what I mean? What can you say? So now let's go to the book of 2 Maccabees chapter 3, and you're going to read verses 1 through 29.
The book of 2 Maccabees chapter 3 and verse 1. Now, when the holy city was inhabited with all peace, and the lands were kept very well because of the godliness of Onanias, the high priest, and his hatred of wickedness, it came to pass that even the king themselves did honor, no, not honor.
No, that's right. Did honor the place. It's just spelled differently because of, the old English.
Okay. Yeah. It came to pass that even the king themselves did honor the place and magnified the temple with their best gift. Insomuch that Seleucus, king of Seleucus, king of Asia, of his own revenue, bare all the costs belonging to the service of the sacrifices. But one Simon of the tribe of Benjamin, who was made governor of the temple, fell out with the high priest about this order in the city. And when he could not overcome Onanias, he got him to Apollo,
Apollonius.
Apollonius, Apollonius,
Apollonius.
Apollonius, the son of Thraseas, who then was governor of Seleucia and Phoenice,
Yeah,
and told him
Cilicia.
Seleucia and Phoenice, and told him that the treasury in Jerusalem was full of infinite sums of money, so that the multitude of the riches, which did not pertain to the account of the sacrifices, was innumerable, and that it was possible to bring all into the king's hand.
You see, this was something that was not just going on, in our recent past, when Christopher Columbus and those guys came over and stole all the riches from our brothers. This has always been an ongoing thing with Israel. That the other nations, when they got the upper hand over us, when they found out how much money, how much riches that our people had, they always wanted to come in and dip their hands in it and take it. It's nothing new, just like today. We're still dealing with the same troubles with the governments of the world wanting to make sure that they constantly find a way to take money or take riches out of the hands of the Israelites. It's nothing new. And this is what we're reading about here. Go ahead and read on.
Now, when Apollonius came to the king and had showed him of the money whereof he was told, the king chose out Heliodorus his treasure, and sent him with a commandment to bring him the aforesaid money.
So he's telling you, know what, man, they got all this cash. Go and get it and bring it to me. Go
Right.
ahead.
So forthwith Heliodorus took his journey under a color of visiting the cities of Seleucia and Phoenice, but indeed to fill the king's purse.
Purpose.
The king's purpose. Well, he did want to fill his purse, right?
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Uh, and when he was come to Jerusalem and had been courageously received of the high priest of the city,
Courteously received of the high priest.
right? He told him what intelligence was given of the money and declared wherefore he came, and asked if these things were so indeed. Then the high priest told him that there was such money laid up for the relief of widows and fatherless children, and that some of it belonged to Hyrcanius, son of Tobias, a man of great dignity, and not as that wicked Simon had misformed, the sum whereof in all was 400 talents of silver and 200 of gold, and that it was altogether impossible that such wrong should be done unto them that had committed it to the holiness of the place and to the majesty inviolable sanctity of the temple, honor over all the world. But Heliodorus, because of the king's commandment, give him, said that in any wise it must be brought into the king's treasury.
So he's like, you
So,
know what? I don't care what this money is for. The king said for me to bring it to him. So it's going to the king's treasury. I don't care. So he didn't care about no sob stories. He didn't care about what the money was laid up for. He just, you know what? I was told to come get it. I'm coming to get it. You better give it up. Go ahead.
so at the day which he appointed, he entered into order this matter. Wherefore there was no small agony throughout the whole city. But the priests, prostrating themselves before the altar in their priest vestments, call unto heaven upon him that made a law concerning things given to be kept, that they should safely be preserved for such as had committed them to be kept. Then whoso had looked the high priest in the face, it would have wounded his heart, for his countenance and the changing of his color declare the inward agony of his mind.
So you gotta think about this for them. Then whoso had looked the high priest in the face, it would have wounded his heart, for his countenance and the changing of his color declare the inward agony of his mind. In other words, he was mad.
Right.
He was, you know what I mean? Getting very pissed off. Go ahead.
For the man was so compassed with fear and horror of the body that it was manifested to them that looked upon him what sorrow he had now in his heart. Other ran flocking out of their houses to the general supplication, because the place was like to come into contempt. And the women, girt with sackcloth under their breasts, abound in the streets. And the virgins that were kept in ran, some to the gates and some to the walls, and others looked out of the windows. And all, holding their hands towards heaven, made supplications. Then it would have pitied a man to see the falling down of the multitude of all sorts, and the fear of the high priest, being in such an agony. They then called upon the Almighty Lord to keep the thing committed to trust safe and sure for those that had committed them. Nevertheless, Heliodorus executed that which was decreed. Now, as he was there, present himself with his guard about the treasury, the Lord of spirits and the Prince of all power caused a great apparition, so that all that presumed to come in with him were as torn, okay, hold on,
Astonished.
astonished at the power of God, and fainted and were sore afraid.
So what happened was the Most High sent an apparition of the Lord's soldiers to protect the money. So here they are looking at this like, wait a minute, what is going on? Go ahead.
For there appeared unto them an horse with a terrible rider upon him, and adorned with a very fair covering. And he ran fiercely and smote at Heliodorus with his 4 feet. And it seemed that he that sat upon the horse had completed harness of gold.
A complete harness of gold. So basically, these are the angels of the Lord. Revelation is and Daniel is not the only places that you read about. These horses. We're reading about it here. You hear about the horse riders in the book of Revelation and things like that. Not going to go into it, but you're reading about these apparitions, these men on horseback. This one here, they're explaining he had a complete harness of gold on his horse. When you think of an apparition, people, think of a ghost or a spirit, spiritual beings, you know what I mean? Coming to attack, coming to protect Israel. Go ahead and read on.
Moreover, 2 other young men appeared before him, notable in strength, excellent in beauty, and comely in apparel, who stood by him on either side, and scourged him continually, and gave him many sore stripes. And Heliodorus fell suddenly unto the ground, and was compassed with great darkness. But they that were with him took him up, and put him into a litter. Thus him that lately came with a great train, and with all his guard into the said treasury, they carried out, being unable to help himself with his weapons, and manifestly they acknowledged the power of God.
So read verse 29.
For he by the hand of God was cast down, and lay speechless without all hope of life.
So they didn't kill him. They just kind of sent them a little warning. Like, hey, you messing with our people, you're going to get dealt with. All right. So what happened in verse 30? Go ahead and read verse 30.
But they praised the Lord that had miraculously honored his own place. For the temple, which a little afore was full of fear and trouble,
It was full of
when
what?
for full of fear and trouble,
It was full of fear and trouble. Read.
when the Almighty Lord appeared, was filled with joy and gladness.
So it says, but they praised the Lord that had miraculously honored his own place. So he came in and protected. For the temple, which a little afore was full of fear and trouble, when the Almighty Lord appeared, was filled with joy and gladness. So you see, there goes again. If Israel is doing what the Most High tells Israel to do, the Lord was always there to protect us.
Mhm.
But if we're not doing what the Most High is telling us to do, then that's when you have situations like the Babylonians were allowed to come in and desecrate the temple and burn it down. And then the second temple that got, built, or the, temple that got rebuilt and got dedicated. And then you had the Greeks come in and defile the temple. They, got the temple, back up again and cleaned out. And now, here this dude is trying to come and take the money from the temple. And the Lord, all praise that that time our people, was doing what they were supposed to. And the Most High was like, I'm not having it. You're not doing this to my people. And protect it. But again, this is Israel being full of what? Fear and trouble. Jacob's trouble. Again, showing us that Jacob's trouble is not just a unique phrase or a unique situation that's mentioned in the book of Daniel. In order to understand Jacob's trouble, you got to understand Jacob's trouble of the past and all the troubles Jacob was in. All right. Um, let's go and just finish this one up. Go ahead and read
Okay.
31, yeah, through 40.
Um, verse 31. Then straightway certain of Heliodorus, friends prayed Ananias that he would call upon the Most High to grant him his life, who lay ready to give up the ghost. So the high priest, suspecting lest the king should misconceive that some treachery had been done to Heliodorus by the Jews, offered a sacrifice for the health of the man. Now, as the high priest was making an atonement, the same young man in the same clothing appeared and stood beside Heliodorus, saying, Give Ananias the high priest great thanks, insomuch as for his sake the Lord had granted thee life.
So, see, people think that it's so far fetched when you read Revelation 2 and 9, Revelation 3 and 9, that the Lord tells us that He's going to make our enemies come and bow down in our feet and acknowledge us. Grab that real quick in Revelation 2 and 9 and 3 and 9. Because you see, everything has happened before. And the Most High is going to just have it happen again. He's going to do the same things again. But you have Christians that will dismiss what the scriptures say and not understand that this is nothing unique. The Most High has done it before. Go ahead.
The book of Revelation, chapter 2 and verse 9. I know thy works and tribulations and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan.
Hence, talking about these people that are over in Israel today pretending to be us. He knows the blasphemy of those that say they are Jews and are not. They're over there saying they're the Jews, but they are not the Jews. So, what does he say he's going to do with them? Go to 3 and 9.
Uh, Revelation 3 and 9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet. and to know that I have loved thee.
So he says he's going to make those people over there in our land come and bow before our feet so that they will know that it is us that he loved. So it's nothing unique. It's happened before. This is what he's doing to Heliodorus. He's forcing him to acknowledge the high priest Onias. He's like, you better show him some respect. Let me read it again. It says, now as the high priest was making an atonement, the same young men, talking about those apparitions in the same clothing, appeared and stood beside Heliodorus, saying, give Onias the high priest great thanks, and so much as for his sake the Lord had granted thee life. So he's like, it's only for his sake that we didn't kill you. If it wasn't for him and the Lord granting you mercy because of him, you'd be dead right now. So you better show some respect. You better put some respect on his name, is what they're saying.
Right.
So it's nothing unique. Again, as I said, the Most High has done it before. He's made our enemies acknowledge us, and he's going to do it again. All right, let's go to verse 34.
And seeing that thou hast been scourged from heaven, declare unto all men the mighty power of God. And when they had spoken these words, they appeared no more. So Heliodorus, after he had offered sacrifice unto the Lord and made great vows unto him that had saved his life, and saluted Ananias, returned with his host to the king.
So
Then,
again, so Heliodorus, after he had offered sacrifice unto the Lord and made great vows unto him that had saved his life, and saluted Onias. So why would anybody think it's so far fetched that the Lord is going to make some people get down on their hands and knees and acknowledge his people when he just forced Heliodorus through his, his angels, through these guys, these apparitions, to salute, to show respect, to give all praise to Onias. You understand what I'm saying? It just, I don't understand how, some of these
right,
guys say they love the Bible and know the Bible and come to simple things like this and act like they can't understand that it's happened before. You know what I mean? Well, it's probably due
right.
to a lack of study, lack of reading. All right, let's go ahead and go on to verse 36.
Then testified he to all men the works of the great God, which he had seen with his eyes. And when the king asked Heliodorus, who might be a fit man to be sent yet once again to Jerusalem, he said, if thou hast any enemy or a traitor, send him thither.
So he's like, you know what, man? Let me tell you something, King. Don't mess with them. You know what? Don't send somebody you like. If you got somebody that you don't like, that you want to get rid of, send them. Give, do yourself a favor. Send those people instead because you don't want to mess with them. He's like, after what we saw, you don't want to be messing with them. Go ahead, though.
And thou shalt receive him well scourged, if he escape with his life, for in that place no doubt there is an especial power of God.
You see, in that place, no doubt there is an especial power of God. And that's the problem our enemies see in us right now. And they know our book, that within us, it then, because we are God's temple. Just
Right.
like God's special power was in that place in our temple, we are the temple of God. God's power reigns inside of us. And our enemies know this. But as long as they keep us in sin, God's not going to deal with us. He's not going to protect us. He's not going to help us. But when we finally come together as a nation, keep his commandments, and do what he expects us to do, then that power of God is going to be upon his people. And they know what will happen to them based on what we're reading now in the scriptures, in the times of old, that God will protect us from our enemies. even our enemies from within Israel, because even back then, Israel had enemies from within their own ranks that would sell out and go and help the enemy.
Hmm.
All right, so it's not a unique thing. Jacob has always dealt with trouble. All right, let's go and finish this up.
For he that dwelleth in heaven hath his eyes on that place, and defend it, and he beneath and destroy them that come to hurt it. And the thing concerning Heliodorus and the keeping of the treasury fell out on this sort.
All right, so again, you want to find out and read more about that, read chapter 4 and 1 through 50. You got chapter 5, which is 1 through 27. Chapter 6, verses 1 goes up to 31. Chapter 7, verses 1 through 42. Chapter 8, verses 1 goes all the way up to 36. Chapter 9, verses 1 and goes up to verse 29. So get into these scriptures, read, study, understand, and you will have so much more understanding of what was going on in the New Testament. It would make so much more sense to you. All right. So we're going to go to 2 Maccabees chapter 10 and going to read verses 1 through 4 first.
The book of 2 Maccabees chapter 10 and verse 1. Now Maccabeus and his company, the Lord guiding them, recovered the temple and the city. But the altar which the heathen had built in the open streets, and also the chapels, they pulled down, and having cleansed the temple, they made another altar, and striking stones, they took fire out of them, and offered a sacrifice after 2 years, and set forth incense and light and showbread. When that was done, they fell flat down and besought the Lord that they might come no more into such troubles. But if they sinned any more against him, that he himself would chasten them with mercy, and that they might not be delivered unto the blasphemous and barbarous nation.
All right. So this is after the Maccabees. It says, now Maccabeus and his company, the Lord guiding them, recovered the temple in the city. So after the temple had been taken, they recovered it. The book of Maccabees also, first Maccabees and second Maccabees also are not written in chronological order, just like when you read the Bible as a whole. It's not written in chronological order. So you kind of got to bounce back and forth between first Maccabees and second Maccabees and put it all together because it's all mixed and scrambled. All right. But it says, but the altars which the heathen had built in the open street and also the chapels they pulled down. And having cleansed the temple, they made another altar, and striking stones, they took fire out of them and offered a sacrifice after 2 years and set forth incense and lights and showbread. When that was done, they fell flat down and besought the Lord. In other words, they started to pray that they might come no more into such troubles. You see, the term of troubles coming upon Jacob has been in the scriptures all along. It's not just something unique to the book of Daniel where you read the term or the phrase Jacob's trouble. Jacob has always had troubles. All right. So let's go on verse 5 through 38.
Now, upon the same day that the strangers profaned the temple, on the very same day it was cleansed again, even the 25th day of the same month, which is Caslu. And they kept 8 days with gladness, as in the feast of the tabernacles, remembering that not long afore they had held the feast of the tabernacles when as they wander in the mountains and dance like beasts.
Now, this is something that we haven't really talked about much because we have Feast of Tabernacles coming up very soon. All right, actually within on like a month or so. All right. Um, what we're reading about here is the feast of what do you call it? Well, Hanukkah, which is the feast of dedication. That's what we're reading about right here, which happens or comes in the month of December. All right. Um, and you read about Christ celebrating that feast in the New Testament. Um, actually, I can't even think of where that's. I have a link right now. Let me find it real quick. Go to it. John 10 and 22. How can I not remember that? John 10 and 22. So you have a lot of times Israelites will go to this when we come upon Christians or Christian pastors and they try and say the Apocrypha is not canon. You can't be using that book. It's been outlawed and hoopla, hoopla, hoopla. And we will go to John 10 and 22 and tell them, okay, so if the Apocrypha is not canon, then why in the book of John is it talking about Christ himself celebrating the Feast of Dedication?
Right.
Which is found where? Because you don't find it in the 5 books of Moses. You don't find it in the Torah. There's nothing mentioned when the Most High mentions all of the feasts and high holy days in the Old Testament. The Feast of Dedication is not there. So where did the Feast of Dedication come from? Why would Christ be celebrating it if the Feast of Dedication is not canon? Go ahead and read what you got.
The book of John, chapter 10 and verse 22. And it was at Jerusalem, the feast of dedication, and it was winter.
And it was winter. You see, that's what we're supposed to be celebrating in December is the Feast of Dedication, not Christmas. See, our people have been deceived by our enemies into celebrating their pagan holidays when the Most High gave us a high holy day to celebrate at that time, which is called Hanukkah. Hanukkah is not the celebration of the Jewish people that are over there in our land. They stole our holiday and they've basically blasphemed it.
Right.
That our 7-stick candlestick, which is called the menorah, they've taken it and made it nine candlesticks when it's supposed to be 7, as described in the Bible. You see, this is how you know that the people that are over there in our land are not the true Jews, because they will not follow what the Bible says. Nothing that they'll appear to be following the Bible and following the Torah, but they're not. They're following their own thing. All right. They've stolen our customs and they've kind of revised them to fit their own narrative. But we can read, you know what I mean? That's a whole different story. But Christ celebrated the Feast of Dedication, which we're reading about here in the book of 2nd Maccabees chapter 10, which came about because of the abomination of desolation that happened upon the temple. When we got control of the temple again and they cleansed the temple and rededicated the temple, this holiday was proclaimed throughout Jerusalem, throughout Israel, to be kept at this particular time, which is the 25th day of what is called the month of Caslu. You see, you've been deceived by our enemies into celebrating December 25th. The 25th day of Caslu doesn't fall on the day of December 25th. because our calendar is a little off from Esau's calendar, the calendar that they've given us, as Daniel had proclaimed that they would seek to change laws and times. I'm paraphrasing. That's what this beast, this enemy, did when they came into power. And we're still dealing with that change in times and laws today. We're still dealing with Jacob's troubles today, which Jacob's troubles are going to get worse and worse and worse. All right. Let's go back to Second Maccabees. But again, go back to read John 10:22 on your own about Christ going into the temple and celebrating the Feast of Dedication. All right. You got to ask yourself, where did this high holy day come from? Because it's not mentioned in the Old Testament. That's because it came about in the Apocrypha. That's how we know that the Apocrypha is real. The Apocrypha is canon. All right, that's one of the ways anyway, not the only way, but it's one of the ways. But that's one of the main ways that you can prove it. Because if Christ didn't do it, we couldn't prove it. But Christ did it, so we can prove it. All right, if that makes sense to you. Let's go ahead.
Verse 7, 2 Maccabees chapter 10 and verse 7. Therefore, they bare branches and fair bows and palms also, and sang psalms unto him that had given them good success in cleansing his place. They ordained also by a common statute and decree that every year those days should be kept of the whole nation of the Jews.
So from year to year, every year, we're supposed to keep this celebration, which is now is called Hanukkah. Go ahead.
And this was the end of Antiochus, called Epiphanes.
And remember, King Antiochus came into power after Alexander the Great, which we read about in the book of First Maccabees, chapter 1 through. All right, so this is telling us that this became the end of Antiochus. Go ahead.
Now we will declare the acts of Antiochus Eupator,
Eupator.
who was the son of this wicked man, gathering briefly the calamities of the wars. So when he was come to the crown, he set one Lysias over the affairs of his realm, and appointed him chief governor of Seleucia and Phoenice.
All right, so basically what we're reading about is after Antiochus came to an end, his son came into power. His son put the crown on and became the king. And we're reading about how he appointed this Lysias chief governor of Cilicia and Phoenice. All right, go ahead.
For Ptolemy, that was called Macron, choosing rather to do justice unto the Jews for the wrong that had been done unto them, endeavor that continue peace with them. And when upon being accused of the king's friends before Eupator and called traitor at every word, because he had left Cyprus, the Philometor had committed unto him, and departed to Antiochus Epiphanes, and seeing that he was in no honorable place, he was so discouraged that he poisoned himself and died.
So because he wanted to try and keep good relations with the Jews, he was branded a traitor by these guys, and it became overbearing for him, so he killed himself. Go ahead.
But when Gorgias was governor of the holds, he hired soldiers and nourished war continually with the Jews, and therewithal the Idumeans, thank you, the Idumeans. It's just weird because the way they put the slits and lines and stuff on here to try to sound it out. I think it's better if they just put the word. Idumeans having gotten into their hands the most commodious holds, kept the Jews occupied, and receiving those that were banished from Jerusalem, they went about the nourished war. Then
So real quick, so again, the Idumeans. Idumea is just a Greco-Roman word for Edom. They're Edomites. The Greeks and the Romans, they are the children of Edom. They are the children of Esau. The so-called Caucasians of today, they're the same people. They are the descendants of the Greeks and the Romans. They are the children of Esau. They just changed their names every so often to hide that fact. So now, they call themselves Americans, they call themselves Europeans or Germans, and so on. But they are the Idumeans of the Bible that you read about in the scriptures. All right. Go ahead,
Mhm.
though.
Then they that were with Maccabees made supplication and besought God that he would be their helper. And so they ran with violence upon the strongholds of the Idumeans, and assaulting them strongly, they won the holds and kept off all the uh, fought upon the wall, and slew all that fell into their hands, and killed no fewer than 20,000.
So we were putting a beating on these Edomites. Go ahead.
And because certain who were no less than 9,000 were fled together into two very strong castles, having all manner of things convenient to sustain the siege. Maccabees left Simon and Joseph and Zacchaeus also, and then that were with him, who were enough to besiege them, enough to besiege them, and departed himself unto those places which more needed his help. Now that they that were with Simon beguile be
Being
being
led.
being led with covetousness were pursued for money,
Persuaded for money.
persuaded for money through certain of those that were in the castle, and took 70,000 what's that?
Drachms.
Drachms, and let some of them escape. But
So
when
in
it
other
were
words, they accepted a bribe through their covetousness. They loved money. They were able to be bribed. Go ahead.
But when it was told Maccabeus what was done, he called the governor of the people together and accused those men that they had sold their brethren for money and set their enemies free to fight against them.
So it goes back to what I said just a little bit ago. We've always had traitors among our own people. This is nothing new. The things that we see today, where you see so many of our people have turned into real house Negroes, that they will sell out their own people to make money. Your P. Diddy's, your Oprahs, and so on. These people, they don't care about us, the Jay-Z's. You know what I mean? What's the one that plays Medea? I can't even think of his name right now. When you go and look at the history of our people, there's always been Israelites that will take the side of our enemies, take the side of the Idumeans, or take the sides of Esau, and will sell out their own people. And as he says, you sold your own people for money, and you set your enemies free to fight against you. That's what our people do today. That's what would happen even during slavery. You read about some of our own people owning their own brothers as slaves. It's nothing new under the sun, as we read about at the beginning of the lesson last Sabbath. What has happened, or what is to be, has already been. We've read about that. There's nothing new under the sun. All right, let's go ahead and read on.
So he slew those that were found traitors, and immediately took the two castles.
See, back then, our people didn't play. You traded on our people, that was death. That's what it says. So he slew those that were found traitors. So there are a lot of our people today that, you know, have become traitors to their own people. And they've led our people further into bondage under our enemies under the guise of freedom or so-called civil rights.
Hmm.
And our people are too blinded to see it. Go ahead.
And having good success with his weapons and all things he took in hand, he slew in the two holes more than 20,000.
He killed more than 20,000. Go ahead.
Now Timotheus, whom the Jews had overcome before, when he had gathered a great multitude of foreign forces and horses out of Asia, not a few, came as though he would take Jewry by force of arms. But when he drew near, they that were with Maccabees turned themselves to pray unto God, and sprinkled earth upon their hands, and girded their loins with sackcloth,
So it's actually upon their heads, sprinkled earth upon their heads. Go ahead.
and fell down at the foot of the altar, and besought him to be merciful to them, and to be an enemy to their enemies, and as an adversary to their adversaries, as the law declareth. So after the prayer, they took their weapons and went on further from the city. And when they drew near to their enemies, they kept by themselves. Now the sun being newly risen, they joined both together, the one part having together with their virtue their refuge also unto the Lord for a pledge of their success and victory. The other side making their rage leader of their battle. But when the battle waxed strong, there appeared unto the enemies from heaven five completely men upon horses,
Five comely men upon horses.
five commonly men upon horses with
So, in
uh,
other words, those same apparitions that had appeared before showed up to the battle. So, those same calmly looking angels that were on those horses, wearing those, those fresh looking garments, had their weapons ready. They came to help our people. The Most High sent them again. Those apparitions. Go ahead.
with bridle of gold, and two of them led the Jews, and two Maccabees betwixt them, and covered with uh, and
And
covered
cover.
him, yeah, and covered him on every side with their weapons, and kept him safe.
You
But
see,
shot
basically, this is what Esau don't want our people to know.
right,
Just like when you read the book of Jasher and you read about the exploits of our forefathers, the battles that they fought, how valiant these men were. They don't want us to know about that history of our people, that our people were warriors. They just want us to think we were just some soft butt naked bushmen running around Africa that didn't know nothing. And they brought us over here and we were just some ignorant beasts that didn't have, no logic, no thought, no nothing. We were just nothing, which is far from the truth. Our people were warriors. They
right,
fought valiant battles. And the reason we were able to fight those valiant battles because we had the angels of the Lord there fighting, our brothers fighting alongside of us.
right,
That's what they don't want us to know, that the angels up in heaven, we are their brothers. We are God's people. We are literally God's children. They don't want you to know that.
right.
That basically, I don't want to get into all of it. Man, I'm telling you, our people just don't understand the value that we have in this world. In that there are people here that want to keep you from attaining those things that are promised to you. But let's go ahead and keep reading.
Right. but shot arrows and lightnings against the enemies, so that being confounded with blindness and full of trouble, they were killed. And there were slain of hold on. And there were slain of footmen 20,000 and 500 and 600 horsemen. As for Timotheus himself, he fled into a very strong hold called Gazara, where Shereas was governor. But they that were with Maccabeus laid siege against the fortress courageously for 4 days. And they that were with him, trusting to the strength of the place, blasphemed exceedingly and utter wicked words.
So,
Nevertheless, upon
well, hold on real quick because I want to address what's written in Second Maccabees 10 and 30. So, what we're reading about here is, after Jacob had gone through his troubles, then the Most High turned the tables and brought trouble upon our enemies. Yeah, it says, but shot arrows and lightnings against the enemies, that being confounded with blindness and full of trouble, they were killed. So that is going to happen, but that's only going to happen after Jacob goes through his troubles or we go through our troubles. Then the Most High is going to turn the tables and bring trouble upon our enemies. But that's not what Jacob's trouble is. Jacob's trouble is talking about trouble coming upon Jacob. All right, but let's go ahead and continue on.
nevertheless, upon the 5th day early 20 young men of Maccabeus' company, in inflamed with anger because of the blasphemies, assaulted the wall mainly, and with a fierce uh, courage killed all that they met withal.
But it actually says assaulted the wall manly, saying these were some men, these were some valiant men that,
Right.
they came and, and did what they had to do. Go ahead.
Um, Others likewise ascending after them, while they were
Busied
busy with them that were within, burned the towers and killed fires burnt
and kindling fires burnt.
and kindling, kindling fires burned the blasphemers alive, and others broke open the gates, and having received in the rest of the army took the city.
Do you see, reading this now, do you get an understanding why they hate us so much and why they want to take us down? They know what we did to them. They know how when we're at our full strength, we give them the beat downs of all beat downs. And it's going to happen again. And they know that this is what they're so afraid of. They don't want to get that beat down again
Mhm.
but they know it's coming for them. They know what's waiting for them. So they're doing everything. And I don't blame them. If you know you did something wrong to somebody and they know you did it, and you've gotten information that says that they're going to get their revenge on you for what you did to them, you got to be paranoid. You're going to be full of fear, especially when you say, oh man, what they're going to do to me. They don't have a
Right.
pot to piss in. But then once you start seeing them rise up, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Hold on now. Maybe I do have something to worry about because they know our history. They know who our forefathers are.
Right.
They know the exploits of our forefathers and the battles that they waged. Just like we're reading here during the time of the Maccabees, how they ascended up the walls to the towers, burned the towers, of their castles and stuff like that. Go back and read the book of Jasher, and you read about the same kind of battles from our forefathers, from the 12 tribes. You read about Judah. You read about Ephraim and Manasseh. You hear about their exploits. You know what I mean? You all 12 of our forefathers, all 12 of Jacob's sons. You read about the battles that they fought. And for anybody to sit there and say the book of Jasher is fake, like somebody put that into your mind because they don't want you to know about the exploits of your people. They don't want you to know that your people were some warriors. You got to ask, what kind of sense does it make that we are called the 12 tribes of Israel, but the Most High didn't leave us no written record about our forefathers, who we descended from, the actual 12 sons of Jacob? What kind of logic does that make? It
Right.
makes no sense. And you read about the 12 sons and their exploits along with their father, the battles that they fought. Go read the book. Stop listening to people. Oh man, that book is fake. It's like, so the white man just decided to make up this whole book about how great of you know of fighters and warriors that their enemies are. They give these, they give them way too much. What's the word I'm looking for? Giving them too much praise, too much honor.
Right. Credit.
Yeah, there you go. You're giving them way too much credit. Why would they do that? You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. But when you read it, it will make sense to you. Go ahead though.
Verse 37, and killed Timotheus that was hid in a certain pit, and
Charius,
Sharius, his brother, with
Apollophanes.
Apollophanes,
Yeah,
when
famed Apollophanes.
Apollophanes. When this was done, they praised the Lord with psalms and thanksgiving, who had done a great thing for Israel and given them the victory.
Giving them the victory. So you can see when you read about the Maccabees period, you read about the exploits of Judas Maccabees and his sons, um, and how they fought for our people. Go and read the book of First and Second Maccabees. All right, read chapter 11, read chapter 12, read chapter 13, 14, 15, and you will have a better understanding of the New Testament when you get done. When you read about how the Romans came into power and they just kind of integrated the Greeks into their society because they're the same people. It's no different than America and Russia going at each other. They're the same people. They, for whatever reason, Esau just loves fighting Esau
Right.
for, to see which one is going to be the most powerful or be the one in power. The problem with Jacob is that Jacob tries to copy off of Esau, fighting each other, which the Most High told us not to do. We're not supposed to be a kingdom divided. They don't care about being a divided kingdom, even though they call themselves the United States of America. How united is the United States of America when you have one half of America calling themselves blue and the other half calling themselves red, and they're constantly at odds with each other and fighting each other? People don't take the time to think about this stuff. Um, so, what we're going to get into now, again, if you want to read more about what happened during the Greeks and the Romans coming into power, read the books of First and Second Maccabees. Read the whole chapters, all right, and you will read about Jacob's troubles through that time period. So now we're going to get into Jacob's troubles of the New Testament, all right. Um, so we're going to start off. Let's go with Jacob's troubles of the New Testament. Let's go to Matthew chapter 2 and read verses 16 through 18.
The book of Matthew, chapter 2. Oh, Matthew. Second. I jumped. The book of Matthew, chapter 2, and verse 16. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceedingly wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem, and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. Then was filled that which was spoken by by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, in Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping and great mourning. Rachel weep for her children and will not be comforted because they are not.
All right.
19.
So no, just read up to 18. All right. So what we're reading about right here was reading about Herod, that when he found out about Christ being born, these sent these three, what they call the three wise men, out to find Christ. But when they found him, they gave him gifts. They were enamored by him, so they were like, you know what, man, we can't do nothing wrong to this child. So when he found out that they didn't carry out his wishes, he was mad. So what did he do? It says, then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem, and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under. So what we're showing you here is that this part of Jacob's trouble is nothing new also, where they would literally kill our children. They did the same thing in Egypt. Go to, what is that? Exodus 1 and 15. And you're going to read through verse 22. To verse 22.
The book of Exodus, chapter 1 and verse 15. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrews midwives, of which the name of the one was Sapphira, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, when ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew woman, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared God, and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives, and said unto them, why have ye done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwife said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively, and are deliver ere the midwives come in unto them.
So in
Therefore,
other words, before they were even able to get there, they was just spitting the babies out. You know what I mean? They were coming out quick. All right, go ahead.
therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mightily. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive.
So this whole thing about eugenics that we hear about and read about in today's times, that has happened to our people in recent times, is nothing new under the sun. Jacob's trouble. Jacob has always had trouble with our enemies, going so far into their hatred and envy of us that they would even kill off our children. They had no qualms about it. You read about it in the Old Testament, in the book of Exodus, with Pharaoh and killing the children because he was trying to keep, um, uh, the Moses from basically being born, and also to keep us from rising up. And then you read about the same thing in the book of Jasher, that they did the same thing during the time of Abraham. There was a what do you call it? A prophecy of Abraham's birth. And they tried to do the same thing. They wanted to kill Abraham. There's nothing new under the sun. Throughout our history, you read about the same things happening to our people. Jacob's troubles, or troubles coming upon Jacob, or coming upon our people. And like I said, in their desperation, they've always targeted our babies and targeted our children. It's nothing new. So it would behoove you to go and research and find out about this eugenics, because this Margaret Sanger that came up with Planned Parenthood, she was a big follower of eugenics, or believer in eugenics. That was the purpose of putting Planned Parenthood into the inner cities, because they wanted to kill off our babies. Now, the sad part about it is you got our women out here marching alongside all these other nations or nationalities of women, talking about equal rights for abortion and all this crazy stuff. Basically, you're begging and fighting to kill your children, which makes absolutely no sense to me. That shows you how far we've fallen as a people, that our women are marching and fighting for a right to kill their babies. How wicked and evil is that? But because of time and it being put in front of our faces all our lives, Roe versus Wade, you know what I mean, abortion rights, and now people are just immune to it. They think it's a God-given right for you to be able to go and have your baby aborted and kill them. But again, it's that reverse psychology. Well, it'll look evil on us if we just go and start killing their babies. So what can we do to make them go in and voluntarily kill their babies? That's what it is. Volunteering to kill your children. And they've duped our women into doing it. And now, between the so-called Black and Hispanic women, we have the highest number of abortions of all other women in the world.
Right.
Go look at the statistics. The statistics. Go look at them. Go read them. Go look them up. But again, this is Jacob's trouble. Jacob has always gone through troubles, through tribulations and trials. There's nothing new. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're reading about in Matthew 2:16 of Herod wanting to kill these children, again, just like they did with during the time of Moses, they did during the time of Abraham. You read about them wanting to do it during the time of Christ, and it's never stopped. All right. Let's go to Matthew 10 and 16 through 25. Let's read another one.
Matthew. The book of Matthew, chapter 10 and verse 16. It says, "Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves."
So this is basically Christ warning us. This is a warning from Christ himself, telling us what to look out for, what to be aware of, so that if it's at all possible, we can avoid Jacob's trouble if at all possible. But we're going to go through it, but he's letting us know what's going to happen. So Jacob's trouble is, troubles of Jacob are mentioned in the New Testament. All right, go ahead.
"But beware of men, for they will deliver you up to the councils, and they will scourge. They will scourge you in their synagogues. And
So
ye
not only is he warning us about our enemies, but he's warning us about our own people that are going to deliver us up to the council. They're going to scourge us in their synagogues. That's the same thing they did to Christ, his own people. They delivered him up into the council of the so-called heathen, the so-called Europeans or white men, so that they could have him put to death. And they're going to do the same thing to us. It's been going on. We've always had traitors among Israel. All right, go ahead.
And ye shall be brought before governors and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them and the Gentiles.
So you
But
see that even going on today. You will like you will see some of our brothers out there on the streets teaching, and a Christian pastor will be pissed off because they're teaching in front of his church or near his church, and blasting, that pastor or his church, and he'll get mad and call the cops on them, try and have them delivered up to what? To the magistrates, basically taken in by the cops, taken before the judge. He said that these things were going to happen to us. You were going to be brought before governors and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them and the Gentiles. Go ahead and read.
But when they deliver you up, take no thought how or what ye shall speak, for it shall be given you in that same hour what ye shall speak. For it is not ye that speak, but the Spirit of your Father which speaketh in you. And the brother shall deliver up the brother to death, and the father the child, and the child shall rise up against their parents and cause them to be put to death.
So he's telling us these things are going to happen where our own people are going to come against us in these last days and bring trouble upon their own people, just like we read about in Maccabees, bringing upon Jacob's trouble. Our own family members, our own, saying your own children, your own parents, they don't want to hear the truth. They're going to become your enemies. You're going to be trying to speak this truth to your mom, your dad, or your grandparents, your aunt, your uncle, your brother, your sister. You're going to be trying to show them that God expects us to keep his commandments. We got to keep God's commandments. We got to come back to keeping God's laws. But they love Esau's laws and commandments so much that they are going to come against you. They're going to even give them incentive to come against you for them to turn you in. Those things are going to happen, and Christ warned us about it. Go ahead and read.
And ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, but he that endureth to the end shall be saved.
So he's warning us, he's telling us, and ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. Why? Because this is Jacob's trouble. Our own people are going to bring trouble upon Jacob, upon our people, because they're going to be delivering us to the enemy. They're going to be telling on you. They're going to be searching for, okay, these Hebrew Israelites are out here on the streets teaching. They've been branded outlaws. They've been branded enemies of the state. They're racist. They're already starting. They're going to be proclaiming lies against the Israelites. What are they already doing? Calling them what are they? What's the name for it? The groups, the racist groups. Can't get it out. Like they have them on the list, on the SPLC list, with the Ku Klux Klan and all these groups, hate
The
groups. There you go. Yeah,
Southern poverty.
The Southern Poverty Law Center. So they're calling us hate groups and stuff like that already. It's already starting. So now what's happening when Israelites are out there on the streets teaching, because they're planting this into the minds of the people, you're teaching hate. Like, no, we're not teaching hate. We're trying to teach you what the Bible says. That we are the Israelites, and that the people that are over there in the land today, that they are imposters. They stole our identity. You're preaching hate when we're teaching that God is going to deliver his people and put the other nations in captivity under us. You're teaching hate. When you teach that God loves Esau and hates, that God hates Esau and loves Jacob, you're teaching hate. You're preaching hate. So they have already put many of our brothers' groups, many of the Israelite groups, on the Southern Poverty Law Center's website as hate groups, when none of us have ever done anything wrong to anybody. We haven't burned no crosses on nobody's lawns. We haven't taken nobody out into no fields and strung them up by their necks and hanged them. We haven't gone to nobody's houses and surrounded their houses with shotguns and demanded them to come out the house so that we can shoot up the house or shoot up the family or go kill the father and the mothers and brothers and stuff. Like, we haven't done none of that stuff ever. All the Israelites have been doing is peacefully being out in the streets teaching that we're the Israelites. Haven't put hands on nobody unless they've had to put hands because they've been attacked, which, sometimes we'll have it as rare, but it's had to happen. But not going out trying to hurt anybody. But that's what's happening already. They're already starting to bring trouble upon Jacob. And our people just are too blinded by the things going on in this world, by the love of of luxuries that America has given us. The appearance of freedom, and our people have fallen for it, to where you have even some of our brothers in the Christian churches that are coming against the Israelites. Our own brothers are calling us a hate group, out there standing hand in hand with like Vocab Malone with these white Christian apologetics. You got many black pastors standing hand in hand with these people, calling the Israelites a hate group, calling the cops on them when we're trying to teach the truth of the Bible. You have some of our brothers getting fired from jobs, because their jobs find out that you're an Israelite and that you go out in the streets and teach, and you're teaching that we're the Israelites, and you become classified as anti-Semitic because you're teaching the truth that the people that are over there are not Israel. So now you've lost your job, you've lost your means of livelihood. Those things are already happening, and it's going to get worse. In other words, it's called Jacob's trouble.
Right.
But it reads again, and ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. We are going to be hated of all men for teaching the truth of this Bible, because the truth of this Bible has not been heard until now, when the Israelites are starting to bring it out as it's written. And people are going to hate us for it. Even our own family members are going to hate us for it. But it says, but he that endureth to the end shall be saved. That's why when you hear these Christians saying, I'm saved in the blood of Jesus, like, what are you talking about? You're saved. What are you saved from?
Right.
The scripture says, but he that endureth to the end shall be saved. What have you endured? What are you saved from? We're still in the hands of our enemies. We're still living in the land in the hands of our enemy. What are you saved from? You need to stop believing the lies of Christianity and come back to your heritage. Come back to your lineage. Because that's these Christian pastors that have you running around talking about you're saved. You're out there in the midst of adultery, but you're talking about you're saved. You're in the midst of fornication, but you're talking about you're saved. You're out there gang banging and drug dealing, but you're going to church on Sunday talking about you're saved. It makes no sense. But let's go ahead and read on verse 23.
But when they persecute you in the city, flee ye into another. For verily I say unto you, ye shall not have gone over the city of Israel till the Son of Man be come.
And this is one of the issues that I brought up before, that it looks like some of our brothers got so much pride in them that they're not listening. I've tried not to bring it up, but we recently had an incident where a brother was on the streets teaching, and well, he was leaving after they were done, from what I understand, and somebody got the drop on him and shot him. Luckily, the brother lived.
Mm-hmm.
But these things are coming upon our people. This is Jacob's trouble. All right. Um, but again, this goes back to some of the pride that some of our brothers have in some of these camps. Because you have one of your brothers get shot, and instead of listening to Christ, you're going to let pride get the best of you and talking about, you ain't scaring us away. We go be out here bold. And then you send your men back out there the next week, and the week after, and the week after. That's pride. Because that's not what Christ said. What did we just read Christ say? Christ just said, but when they persecute you in this city, flee ye into another. So there's nothing wrong with you saying, you know what, brothers, man, it's getting too crazy over there. We don't want to send you guys out there, um, you know what I mean, in the midst of danger. Christ said this, not me. For when they persecute you in this city, flee ye into another. But we have some of our brothers out here that don't listen to Christ, gonna get some of you brothers killed out here because of their ignorance and their foolishness. And some of you brothers are so stupid and dumb, you listen to your leadership and you just go along with it. Go along to get along. Well, leadership said, you know, we go be bold. Yeah. And send you right back out there. Knowing that, and this isn't the only incident that's happened. It's been ramping up lately with brothers out on the streets teaching and people driving by and shooting at them. And these camp leaders, you know, instead of having the safety of their brothers' best interests at heart, they let pride get the best of them. You ain't going to keep us from going out doing the Lord's work. There is no fear in us. We don't have the spirit of fear. We going back out there next week. I'm going to tell you straight, your leader's a fool. And you're a fool for following him and going back out there. Because Christ himself, read that again. We're going to read it again.
Verse 23. But when they persecuted you in the city, flee ye into another. For verily I say unto you, ye shall not have gone over the cities of Israel till the Son of Man be come.
What's so hard to understand about that? They persecuted you in a city. There's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, man? These brothers don't want to repent out here, but we'll go somewhere else. It's too dangerous to be sending you guys out there. But no, you're going to do videos talking, oh, you brothers out there is soft. Out here talking about, you know, why would we go back out there again? You guys, y'all just some scary brothers. We can't, the Most High can't use you. No, the Most High is going to use you and, you know, because you're doing the work. But he is going to deal with you for your ignorance and foolishness and with how you deal with your brothers. He will do it. And that's what you heard me say before. I'm not out here trying to, you know, send my, you know, brother out there into the you know, the mist of harm's way.
Right.
Well, what happened the one time we were out there in Stockton, and you know, the one dude that had the Edomite lady that he would always go walking by sometimes, and he would hear us teaching,
Hmm.
wasn't even talking to him. And he
Right.
was walking by, we would always ignore him. We would just teach. And just this one day, the devil just jumped on him. He just started going off. Like, I'm gonna go inside and get my pistol. Because he lived in some apartments across the street from where we was teaching.
Right.
I'm gonna go get my pistol. I'm like, what? So we're your brothers. We haven't even said nothing to you. We weren't even talking to you. And you're gonna get that mad at us and threaten our lives because we're out here trying to help you? What kind of sense does that make? And of course, I don't give a you know what, I'm gonna go get my pistol.
Hmm.
Did we go back out there the next week?
I don't remember.
No, we didn't. You don't remember that. You don't remember that next week. I was like, you know what, man? I ain't
I think
taking no chances.
we went to
We did
Sacramento
go
that
back,
day.
but it took a couple of weeks. You don't remember that?
Right. We went to Sacramento afterwards.
Exactly. You don't remember me time. We're not going back out there, man. That dude, he lives right across. We don't know.
Right.
Let it cool down, and then we'll go back. Let's go to Sacramento next week.
Hmm.
That's having care and concern for your people. Saying, you know what, that got too heated yesterday because you just don't know nowadays. Somebody is bold enough to make that kind of a threat. You need to take that threat serious. I'm not a dummy. I'm not a fool. The Most High is not going to be mad at me because I say, you know what, let's let's go somewhere else. Let's flee this city for the day, for the next Sabbath or two,
Hmm.
and go somewhere else until this situation calms down.
Yeah.
I'm not about to take my brother out here. You got kids, right?
Hmm.
Brother right here, he's got 4 kids and a wife. I'm not about to go put him in harm's way because of my own pride. What if I would have like, yeah, forget that fool. We coming out next week.
Right.
And go out there the next week, and then he actually followed up on his threat. Oh, they're out here again, and I'm not doing that. We've got to. What did he just tell us? Be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Verse 16 again, behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. That's wisdom. Letting pride jump on you, man. We going back out there next week. You ain't keeping us from doing the Lord's work. We don't care. That's foolishness. That's not wisdom. That's showing that you're not listening to Christ whatsoever in these scriptures. I don't care what your title is. I don't care how long you've been in this truth. But you're willing to put your men's lives on the line just to feed your own ego, you's a fool. And I don't care who you are. That's stupidity. That's ignorance.
Right.
Again, when they persecute you in this city, flee ye into another. There's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, brothers, it's getting heated in this city over here where we've been going. Let's get out of here for a while until things calm down.
Right.
Let's go over to, let's go over here somewhere. Christ told us to do that. So am I going to listen to you, or am I going to listen to Christ? Me, I'm going to listen to what Christ said and keep my brother and keep myself out of harm's way. There is no ego, that we don't have time for ego tripping. There is no room for it. But let's not get sidetracked. Let's get back to this lesson, man. But again,
Right.
this is Jacob's trouble. Trouble. Jacob loves bringing trouble on himself. Put it to you that way. We love bringing trouble on ourselves because
Right.
of our own foolishness. But let's go ahead. Let's read on. Let's get through this.
The disciple is not above his master, nor the servant above his Lord. It is enough for the disciple that he be as his master, and the servant as his Lord. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebub, how much more shall they call them of his own household?
All right. So Christ warned us about these things. He warned us about the troubles that'll come upon Jacob. He warned us about, what we should do in these times of trouble. Run, run,
Right?
flee. It's crazy. All right. So let's read a little bit more about Herod again. Let's go to Matthew 14 and 1 through 12.
The book of Matthew, chapter 14 and verse 1. At that time, Herod, the Tetrarch,
Oh, Tetrarch, yeah.
Tetrarch, heard of the fame of Jesus. And he said unto his servant, This is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead, and therefore mighty words do show forth themselves in him. For Herod had laid hold on John and bound him and put him in prison for Herod's sake, his brother
Oh,
Philip,
Herodias' sake.
for Herodias' sake, his brother Philip's wife.
So he's Herod, and his wife's name is Herodias. Or the
For,
lady that he stole from his brother. Her name is Herodias. Go ahead, though.
for John said unto him, It is not lawful for thee to have her. And when he would have put him to death, he feared the multitude because they counted him as a prophet. But when Herod's birthday was kept, the daughter of Herodias danced before them and pleased Herod. Whereupon he promised with an oath to give her whatsoever she would ask. And she, being before instructed of her mother, said, Give me her John Baptist's head in a charger. And the king was sorry, nevertheless, for the oath's sake, and them which sat with him at meat, he commanded it to be given her. And he sent and beheaded John in the prison. And his head was brought in a charger and gave to the damsel, and she brought it to her mother. And his disciples came and took up the body and buried it and went and told Jesus. When Jesus heard of it, he departed thence by ship into a desert place apart. And when the people had heard thereof, they followed him on foot out of the cities. And Jesus went forth and saw a great multitude, and was moved with compassion towards them, and he healed their sick. And when it was evening, his disciples came to him, saying, This is a desert
Where were
place.
you? Where were you?
I'm on. I passed 12 already.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was like, wait a second. We're supposed to be going to 12. Yeah, we're just going to 12. So you can see John the Baptist was beheaded. This is Jacob's trouble. Our people are going to experience these things. Nothing unique to just John the Baptist, because you read about this happening in the future, that some of our brothers are going to be beheaded for teaching about the true Christ of this Bible. Grab that in Revelation 20 and 4.
The book of Revelation, chapter 20 and verse 4. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ thousands of years.
So you can see here, even in the book of Revelation, it's telling us about what? Troubles that are going to come upon Jacob, where some of our brothers are going to get beheaded. For what? For the witness of Christ. These things are going to happen. It was prophesied in the scriptures. Jacob's trouble, again, is nothing unique that you just read about in the book of Daniel. It's something that has happened to Jacob throughout our history and is going to happen also in the future. John the Baptist got beheaded for his testimony of Christ, for his testimony of teaching our law, statutes, and commandments and trying to wake our people up. And the same thing's going to happen again, as we just read about in Revelation 20 and 4. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus. All right. So take it for what it's worth. Let's go to the book of Acts, chapter 12, and verse 1 through 5.
The book of Acts, chapter 12 and verse 1. Now about the time Herod the king stretched forth his hands to vex certain of the church, and he killed James, the brother of John, with the sword. And because he saw it please the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also. Then were the days of unleavened bread. And when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison and delivered him to the four
Quaternions of soldiers.
quaternions of soldiers to keep him, intending after Easter to bring him forth to the people. Peter therefore was kept in prison, but prayer was made without ceasing of the church unto God for him.
All right. So these were the days of unleavened bread. This was the time of the Passover. All right. So what did he do? He took James and killed him. He grabbed Peter and kept him in prison. All right. So again, Jacob's trouble coming upon Jacob, where these magistrates and leaders, these kings and princes and things like that, where they become so afraid of our people uprising that they will do what? They will go as far as killing us. They will murder us. They will throw us in prison. Nothing new under the sun. Let's go to Acts 16 and 16 through 24.
The book of Acts, chapter 16 and verse 16. And it came to pass, as we went to prayer, a certain damsel possessed with a spirit of divination met us, which brought her master much gain by soothsaying. The same followed Paul and us, and cried, saying, These men are the servants of the Most High God, which show unto us the way of salvation. And this did she many days. But Paul, being grieved, turned and said to the spirit, I command thee in the name of Jesus Christ to come out of her. And he came out the same hour. And when her master saw that the hope of their gains was gone, they caught Paul and Silas and drew them into the marketplace unto the rulers, and brought them to the magistrates, saying, These men, being Jews, do exceedingly trouble our city, and teach customs which are not lawful for us to receive, neither to observe, being Romans.
So the same thing is going to happen to us in the future. Just like that happened to the apostles when they're out there teaching the truth about the Bible, trying to wake our people up to their true nationality, their true heritage, trying to wake them up to the truth of Christ and keeping the law, statutes, and commandments of this Bible. They're going to do the same thing to us that they did to Paul, that they did to James, that they did to Peter. They're going to kill some of us. They're going to throw some of us in prison. Why? Because they're making it unlawful for us to teach the things that we're teaching. You got to pay attention to what's happening in society right now. All these new laws coming up that are attacking what? They're attacking the Bible. All right. Um, Go ahead. Were you done?
Verse 22.
All right.
And the multitude rose up together against them, and the magistrators,
Magistrates
magistrates of their clothes, no,
rent
magistrate
off their
rent,
clothes. Rent off their clothes. In other words, they pulled their clothes off of them, tore them
and,
off.
right, and commanded to beat them. And when they had laid many stripes upon them, they cast them into prison, charging the jailer to keep them safely. Who, having received such a charge, thrust them into the inner prison and made their feet fast in the stocks.
So, in other words, they got thrown into prison. They got beat. They had their clothes ripped off of them. Does that sound familiar? That's Jacob's trouble. Didn't they do the same thing to our people during slavery? Didn't they rip our clothes off of us? Didn't they beat us with the whip? Laid many stripes upon them. That's what that's talking about. Beat them with the whip. Getting cast in the prison, having your hands and your feet bound in the stocks to where you can't run, you can't move. There's nothing new under the sun. It's Jacob's trouble. Jacob has always dealt with and gone through these troubles. All right, let's go to Acts 19 and 21 through 41.
The book of Acts, chapter 19 and verse 21. After these things were ended, Paul proposed in the spirit when he
Purpose
had
in the
passed
spirit.
um, purpose.
Yeah, Paul purposed in the spirit.
Uh, Paul purposed in the spirit when he had passed through Macedonia and Achaia to go to Jerusalem, saying, "After I have been there, I must also see Rome." So he sent into Macedonia two of them that minister unto him, Timotheus and Eratosthenes. But he himself stayed in Asia for a season. In the same time, there arose no small stir about that way. For a certain man named Demetrius, a silversmith, which made silver shrines for Dinah, Dinah
Diana.
brought
Diana.
Diana, Diana brought to small gains unto the craftsmen.
Let me read that again. It's for a
Yeah.
certain man named Demetrius, a silversmith, which made silver shrines for Diana, brought no small gain unto the craftsmen. Diana is a deity that they were worshiping. All right. And so he was making these idols of her and selling them and making a lot of money. Go ahead and read on.
Whom he called together with the workmen of like occupation, and said, Sirs, ye know that by this craft we have our wealth.
So there was some other people. They also were making idols of different deities, and that's how they were getting rich. And he's telling like, hey, you know what? This is how we get paid, man. And he's trying to tell them now. These dudes is coming in here messing with our money, teaching this Jesus stuff. Go ahead.
Moreover, ye see and hear that not alone at
Ephesus.
Ephesus,
Ephesus.
but almost throughout all Asia, this Paul had pursued, pursued
Persuaded. Persuaded.
persuaded persuaded and turned away much people, saying that they be no gods which are made with hands.
It's no different than what we're seeing today as the Israelites are going out teaching, and we're trying to show our people you need to stop celebrating this Christmas. You need to stop putting those Christmas trees in your house. Need to stop lighting your house up, on Christmas Day. Stop following after the Santa Claus and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and
Mhm.
putting these objects in your house and celebrating Halloween and jack-o'-lanterns, and we're messing with their money. This is how they get paid. This is how Walmart, this is how Target, this is how these Christmas tree growers get paid and get their money. This is how, these these companies that make the reindeer and the blow up dolls that people put in front of their houses and do all the decorations, and this is what runs their economy, is having these holidays every month. You've got a holiday in January, you got New Year's Eve, you got New Year's Day. You've got a holiday in February, which is Valentine's Day, they make money off of when they are selling, the whole story with Cupid and Valentine's cards and Valentine's gifts. You head over to March. I can't think of what they got in March. What is it? Like Memorial Day or something like that. I know there's something that goes on in March. The end of March, sometimes the beginning of April, they got Easter, dealing with the Easter baskets, the Easter bunnies, the Easter eggs, and all of that. That's how they make their money. They've got May. You've got the Cinco de Mayo in May. You've got what's the one with the green?
St. Patrick's.
Say, there you go, St. Patrick's Day. This is how they make their money. You've got June. I can't even think of what they have in June. Is June the only one?
Juneteenth.
There you go. Just popped in my head as you said it. Juneteenth. So now they've given us Juneteenth. Now they've given another celebration. Now you got even white people out there celebrating Juneteenth. Some are coming against it, but just like with Cinco de Mayo, they're using any time you have a holiday as a day where they could drink it and have a good time and have fun. Then you got 4th of July. What do they have in August? I'm trying to think. Do they have something this month, or is it Labor Day that's coming up this next week, or is it on Monday, or is it next week?
I think it's next week.
Is it next week? In September, maybe August might be the only month that they don't have something. But September, end of August, beginning of September, they got Labor Day. October, you get Halloween. November, you've got Thanksgiving. And December, you've got Christmas. So basically, essentially, just about every month, they got some kind of holiday where they're making money. And when the Israelites are out here teaching and coming against these deities because that's what they're doing, they have you serving other deities. And they're making money off of you from celebrating these holidays or celebrating these deities. And when we come against it, just like we're reading here in the book of Acts, they're coming together and they're getting mad. They're going to come against us. They're making laws to outlaw the things that we're teaching. If you don't believe it, look at how many Israelite YouTube channels are getting taken down.
There's a lot. They got a lot for August.
Do they really?
Yeah,
oh, wow.
They says National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day.
Oh wow.
National Water Balloon Day.
National
White Wine Day. Single Working Woman's Day.
Single Working Woman's Day.
Right. And it says 152 more rows of holidays for August.
Wow. See, that's crazy. National, I've never heard of that. National Single Women's Day. But you can see they have a holiday for everything now. Everything. Because I've heard, what was the first one you read?
National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day.
Okay, because I know they have a National Chocolate Day. They have like what is it? Is it National Candy Day or something like that? They have a holiday for all kinds of stuff now. It's crazy. All right. But as you can see, when we come against this stuff, they come against us. Just like we're reading about in Acts 19, where Paul was coming against, them selling these images and selling, and making money off of these deities and teaching the people that what are you buying these things for? They're not gods. Just like we're telling you today, what are you celebrating these holidays for? These are not God. Our people have been brainwashed so much that you don't even realize that they've got you celebrating other gods on these holidays. That's what they've got you doing. But you don't know it because you don't go do the research. Every single one of these holidays, they've got you celebrating a different God other than the one of the Bible, which is your God. You've got the living true God, the true living God. He's your God, and you'd rather go celebrate these other gods with your enemies and piss him off, and he continue to let your enemies come against you. Our people don't make sense at all. What
Verse 27.
27? All right, yeah, let's go ahead and go on. Verse 27.
So that not only this, our craft is in danger to be set at naught, but also that the temple of the great goddess Diana should be despised, and her magnificence should be destroyed, whom all Asia and the world worship. And when they heard these sayings, they were full of wrath and cried out, saying, Great is Diana of the Ephesians. And the whole city was filled with confusion, and having caught Gaius and Aristarchus, men of Macedonia, Paul's companion, is travel. They rushed with one accord into the theatre. And when Paul would have entered in unto the people, the disciples suffered him not. And certain of the chief of Asia, which were his friends, sent unto him, desiring him that he would not adventure himself into the tree. Some therefore cried one thing and some other, for the assembly was confused, and the more part knew not wherefore they were come together. And they drew Alexander out of the multitude, the Jews putting him forward. And Alexander beckoned with the hand and would have made his defense unto the people. But when they knew that he was a Jew, all with one voice about the space of 2 hours cried out, Great is Diana of the Ephesians.
You see how wicked our people are? I'm serious. Our people have always sold our people out. Sold, sold out the prophets, sold out the apostles, and they're doing it to us today. All because they want to continue appeasing our enemies. It makes no sense. It's crazy. But go ahead.
And when the town clerk had appeared, the people
Had appeased the people.
had appeased the people, he said, Ye men of Ephesus, what man is there that knoweth not how that the city of the Ephesians is a worshipper of the great goddess Diana and of the image which fell down from Jupiter?
You see how our people are? They're see, some of our people, they grew up in this town of in this city of Ephesus and called themselves Ephesians, but they were in fact Israelites. But they had taken on the customs of the Ephesians, worshiping this false deity. But you see, our people don't understand that it's the same thing today. We're Israelites living here in America, calling ourselves Americans and following American customs. And in so doing, some of our people are selling our own brothers and sisters out. But go ahead, read on.
Seeing then that these things cannot be spoken against, yet ought to be quiet and to do nothing rashly. For ye have brought hither these men, which are neither robbers of churches, nor yet blasphemers of your goddess. Wherefore, if Demetrius and the craftsmen which are with him have a matter against any man, the law is open, and there are deputies, let them implead one another. But if ye inquire anything concerning other matters, it shall be determined in a law full assembly. For we are in danger to be called in question for this day uproar, for this day's uproar, these being no cause whereby we may give an account of this concourse. And when he had thus spoken, he dismissed the assembly.
All right. So we're going to leave it right there for right now. All right. So just dealing with Jacob's trouble of the New Testament, you can see that Jacob has always had troubles. All right. Next Sabbath, we're going to finish this lesson. It's going to take us a little bit more time with this one because we're going to be dealing with Jacob's future troubles. All right. Which we're going to go into detail about. If you fully want to understand about Jacob's troubles started back at the time of Jacob you know what I mean? Jacob having his 12 sons. Israel has always dealt with troubles and tribulations and trials. Again, Jacob's trouble is nothing new. So we're going to get into Daniel and all of that. All right. But for today, we're going to end it right there. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 12 and 13 through 14.
The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12 and verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil.
And with that, we're going to say shalom, Most High in Christ blessed. Enjoy the rest of your Sabbath, and we will see you next Sabbath. Shalom.